So you just let us know when you're ready. Kick it off.
What's changed? I think that
Everything.
I think the show continues to. I think every season the show's got stronger. I think we've, as we move towards the end of each series, I think we always go for a big crescendo ending, and then we try to go from there onwards and upwards. And so I think season 4 is potentially a little bit darker. I think we've raised the stakes, so it's very exciting. And I think that I mean, in every way, I think it's a stronger series.
I mean, what's brilliant about the show is actually that, you know, Johnny and Julian and everyone are actually quite brave. They found a formula that worked, and rather than just letting that happen for the next 3 or 4 years, every year they went, okay, that's worked, what can we do better? What can we improve? And understood that as the show grows, the audience is going to grow with it.
Yeah.
So rather than the show being exactly the same as it is in the first season, if you look at the first season and you're going to put the 4th season next to it, they are poles apart. It is like a different show. And every year they've pushed the boundaries. I mean, every year we go, there is no way we can work harder. There is no way we could have more stuff and fit more stuff in. And then you get the scripts and you're just like, I mean, it's insane. This year is filming. It is absolutely filming. I had a sneaky look at the opening because I had to match something to it, and it's vast. We're shooting on 35mm film. You know, the cast is bigger, the shots are bigger, the scripts are bigger, everything. I mean, it reminds me of, like, you know, Willow and, you know, Conan the Barbarian. Those kind of really big, vast, epic films is what Merlin looks like this year. And I think it's a brave thing to do, rather than just sort of rest on your laurels, to keep pushing it, because, you know, you're changing a formula, not changing, growing a formula that works.
Absolutely, I think you're right. As everyone gets to know us, then we don't have to keep setting things up. We can just keep moving. And I think the other advantage is that we've got a very small, tight crew. Everyone has learnt all the way through the 3 seasons. So things that we could only dream about in series 1, we can now achieve, but we haven't stopped dreaming.
Absolutely.
So we keep pushing on.
I mean, this year they built a massive green screen set. I mean, it is huge. I mean, it is something that you'd see at Pinewood. It is. And just the type of things that we're now doing on that, we couldn't have done. You know, we started out with like 5 sets on it in Cardiff, and then the castle, and we still have those 5 sets, and every year they build more. I mean, there is no space left in our studio. There is, you know, more detail, everything's more intricate, and it's more like a film every year, and we do 13 mini films rather than just the one.
Yeah.
You get no sleep. Sleep's for quitters. You know? That's one of those things that it's like with Morgana. You kind of you are expecting and waiting for it to happen. But the fantastic thing about Merlin, and the thing that I think makes it so popular, is that it gives you the bits of the legend that you're expecting, but never in the way you think. That's what's so clever about it. I mean, you've got Lancelot, but it's not the Lancelot that you're expecting to get. You've got the Guinevere, but it's not the Guinevere you're expecting to get. So it stands to reason that the bits that you're expecting will surprise you in how it does. That's why the show is so good, because it's clever, and even you can be so familiar with the legend and still it's new. It feels new and fresh to you. So, you know, don't expect anything to happen the way you think. Is kind of what I'd say.
So you could keep Antoniette until the end of
Do whatever
this
you want.
series.
Yeah.
Man's a genius.
Great. That's great.
Well, the guy could spend a whole season with a funny hat on. Make it work. Actually, not like a hat, but okay. Pointy wood. Calm with that switches. Yeah, so.
Well, I think when we started, there are various sources for the legend, and we didn't want to go with any particular version, and decided that why couldn't we have our own version? Why couldn't we take bits and pieces? Everyone knows the stories. Why don't we just play with that in a modern way? So we've always decided that it was an old story, and we were going to retell it for a modern audience. hence the idea of having Merlin and Arthur the same age. And once you've done that, once you've started playing with it, then it becomes exciting, because you just look at anything, as Katie said, and you think, well, what can we do with that, so that for people who know bits about the legend, you're playing with that, you're referencing iconic moments, and but then you've got various members of the audience who weren't brought up on the Arthurian legend, but you still want to make it a very strong story. So people will come to Merlin season 1 and they have no idea where Morgana's going to go, whereas other people immediately, at the moment she's on screen, they're looking for her to be
pale skin, dark hair. She must be evil. I mean, the thing about the Arthurian legend, and any myth that's popular, is the reason that they last for so long is because they're retold to reflect the times that they're told in. And the Arthurian legend is one of the sort of longest running myths. And people can get quite understandably precious about it because it means a lot to them. But if you think about the amount of different, like you said, different people there are have told it, this is just our retelling of it to reflect the times that we're in. And if people watch it and get interested in it that way, surely that's a brilliant thing, and the thing about it is slightly a different retelling, but it has the same feeling, it has the same ideas, it has the same feeling of chivalry and knights, and so it's, Lancelot isn't born a knight and becomes one in ours, so that's slightly different, but you still have the same Lancelot, you still have the same Morgana, and they haven't abandoned all the bits of the legend, and you've kept all the idea and the feeling of it. You've just wrapped it slightly differently.
Yes, exactly. We try to make it more accessible for a modern audience, and so I think that particularly you mentioned the knights. I think that if you look at a modern society, it would be a bit elitist to have these people who were removed from the normal world, and the idea that the knights that we have, they're aspiring to this. It's not necessarily they're born into it. So that I think reflects the world today, and I think that means that it's something that's inclusive.
But they still have the values of the knights.
Absolutely.
Which is playing with the bow.
Nobility is one of the
catchwords from Merlin.
It is.
Yeah, look at that. Now you're finding out what's being bandied around the office in London. I don't know, so this is good. Ask him more questions.
Well, I think on Merlin, because it's a very big show, a lot of CGI, you can't just go off on some fantasy about what you're going to do. You need, from the outset, to we work very closely, the producers and the writers together. We have to know that some of the big ideas that we would like to do are achievable. So, you've got flying dragons.
Merlin riding the dragon didn't happen until the 3rd season.
That's right.
And Colin was desperate to do it. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys were desperate to do it.
We had no idea how we were going to achieve it. So so that's a perfect example of how you can have flights of fantasy, and as a writer, you can go and sit down and you go, oh, I'd love to do this, love to do this. You've got to sit down with a group of people, producer, the people who do the CGI, and go, can we make this possible? And not only for it to be possible, but the standards of the show are such that it's got to look good. It's got to look like something that you would get. And we always aspire to movies, and so there's a danger that you might have Merlin riding on that dragon and it looks terrible, and you want it to look amazing. So I think all the time we're working together. More so on this show, the storylining is very, very important. So we really pin that down, and there's not much room to move away from that. We may edit, we may take things out, but we have to be very clear that everything that we've got is achievable, and achievable within the budget. The budget for the show is
Boss.
Yes, it is the boss, but it's quite large, and yet you could always do with more, because Magic is expensive. We always wanted to, from the outset, I think that it was such a big canvas for us to work with. So we were always looking to get to season 3, season 4. But when you start off, in modern television, it's so easy for shows to be cancelled very quickly. So in your mind, you know where you want to get to. You know the type of things where we want to go with Morgana. It's dangerous to think too far ahead because other people decide your fate. But in a way, the way that the audience have responded has meant, there's this incredible love for the show. So it means that we can be always confident that that people will want us back. But yes, we have to think quite a long way down the line, and you don't want to get through the stories too quickly. But yeah, we had big ideas for it. It was a big show. This was our chance.
Really for you, no more evergreen.
No, I mean,
all James Bond girl.
No, I know. I have issues with the fact that everybody else got, I got Eva Green. I mean, it's not a comparison you ever want on your best of days.
She's a future James Bond girl.
Yeah, no, we're going to call her
I'll go with that.
Yeah, is that alright?
Yeah.
Like we said, with Camelot, it's weird. You hear that they're doing something based on the same legend, and you do get a, oh God, what's it going to be like? But when the show came out, you realise that they are poles apart. There is another character called Morgana, there's another character called, but they're completely different. I mean, I think Camelot and even themselves build themselves closer to Game of Thrones and things like that, and the Borgias. And I didn't feel threatened by them because they're trying to do something so completely different. And, we were already established. We were 3 years in, and there's a swagger that comes with your step, and the fact that you've been renewed on and on and on, and you're like, okay, well, what we're doing isn't what they're doing, and people like what we're doing. So, you kind of feel a bit of security in that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't really got involved in that. I'm so involved in my own version of Camelot and the world that we live in, and that I adore. I didn't really want to be distracted by somebody else's vision. Everyone's got their right to revisit the legend, but
and it's exactly what we were saying. People retell it to tell their story.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of the fact that Camelot did their version and Merlin does theirs, and they're completely poles apart.